Yeah, I'd like to just give a quick introduction of what we're doing here and why we're doing it. My name is Mike Ambrosowitz. I'm a resident here of Gurnee, and a couple of us, George and Mark, we put this together. Kathy, where are you at? There you are. So we just put this together because we met Bruce and liked Bruce. And what we like is, well, I'll let him speak to that, but we know the state's it's a runaway freight train, and we need somebody to turn that train around, and nobody can deny that. And we have some people in a race that, if anything they can do to slow it down, they've been part of the problem. But we're looking for that person to reverse this, who's not holding anyone, which is why we really went fully on board with Bruce. And I'll let him speak for himself. In the meantime, I'd like to introduce who I think is going to be a great governor, Bruce Rauner.
Thank you very, very much, everybody. It's an honor to be with you. Building our party back on founding principles that make America great. Limited government, low taxes, individual liberty, personal responsibility. It's all about leadership. We all are blessed here in Lake County. We've got one of the best leaders in the conservative cause in the entire state. That's Mike Ambrosowitz. We give a good round of applause. I want to say thanks to each and every one of you in this room for taking the time, for caring about the future of the state. It's when every citizen, every voter takes the time, get informed, get involved, get engaged. That's how we rebuild the Republican Party. That's how we win next year, but that's also how we're competitive in every race going forward. Thank you for your hard work. It's your networking. It's your knocking on doors. It's your making phone calls. It's your getting signs out. That's how we win. That's how we take on the Democrats and those characters down in Springfield. That's how we rebuild the party. So thank you for everything that you do. It's an honor to be with you. I'm very excited, very energized. I'm here because I love the state of Illinois passionately. I was born and raised here. And I'm outraged, I'm frustrated beyond description at the condition of our state and the trajectory of our state. If we don't turn our state around and fundamentally transform it, our children, our grandchildren are not going to do the future. We're the worst run state in America. We have the worst governor in America. And we've got to get him out of office, and we've got to take on those special interest groups and turn our state around. And we can't just nibble around the edges. We can't just veto a few bills, and believe me, we need to veto a lot of bills, but we need to do a lot more than that. We need to take on the special interest groups that are controlling the government. We need to transform the government, shrink the spending, get rid of the deficits, take on the massive pension problem, become pro-business, pro-free market capitalism again, have great schools throughout the state, and fundamentally transform our state government. Today it's run by special interest groups that make their money from government. We need to run for you and all the citizens and all the taxpayers of the state, and we've got to do a major transformation. I'm excited to go do it. The reason I'm doing it is I've just completely lost faith that the career politicians in Springfield will get the job done. I just have no confidence. They're down there for their own good, for their job, or because they make money from their, their political power, or they're there because it's the next thing they do in their career. No, we need leadership, we need transformation. We need to drive an outstanding result. We had a big debate in my family whether I should run for governor or not. I've got 6 kids. My wife and I were debating around the dinner table with the family, and my youngest daughter said, "Daddy, don't run for governor. I don't want you to go to jail." As they had a commentary on our state, the 13-year-old girl knows that's what our governors do. And I said, "Katie, one of the reasons I probably will run is because there's still a lot of corruption down there in Springfield, and I want to prosecute it and rip it out of the system. And we're going to run, we're going to win this race, and I'm very excited about it. I'm running to accomplish 4 things. I want to focus like a laser on 4 things for you and for every citizen and every voter in this state. More jobs, lower taxes, better schools, and term limits on every elected official in Springfield. Those are the 4 things I'm going to focus like a laser. There are a lot of things that are important, and we can talk about every issue that you want to talk about today. And that's my goal. I don't want anybody to leave this room this morning with any question unanswered. Let's do a lot of Q&A. Let's go really deep on every issue you care about. I don't want anybody to ask the toughest questions. Don't just, we don't need softballs. Let's talk about hard issues. But I'm going to focus on 4 things. More jobs, lower taxes, better schools, and term limits. That's it, like a laser. To get more jobs in this state, we've got to become pro-business, pro-growth, pro-free market capitalism. Today we're hostile to business. We have regulations, taxes, burden on businesses. Small business owners are suffering, and they're leaving the state. And we've got the 2nd highest unemployment rate in America. We have higher unemployment than Michigan. I mean, come on. Come on. It's ridiculous. Companies want to be here, but we're hostile to them. Our labor regulations, our environmental regulations, our workers' comp costs, our tort system, our litigation system, our tax code. You name the issue, we're hostile to business. And the fact is, free market capitalism is the reason we're the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. It's the #1 poverty-fighting engine ever devised by mankind. We should be completely pro-free enterprise, pro-growth, pro-job creation. That's got to be job priority 1, because nothing else matters if we don't have that. We can't afford health care, we can't afford education, we can't afford anything else. Free market capitalism, pro-business, pro-growth, job creation priority 1. Priority 2, the tax burden. To take on the tax burden, we need to reduce the spending in Springfield. It's out of control. And to take on the spending, there are many issues. It's the pensions, it's the Medicaid system, which is broken and corrupt and out of control. It's the overall work rules and the cost structure and the special deals that are going on. And to take it on, we've got to take on the government union bosses. Government union bosses in Springfield, the folks who make their money from us as taxpayers, they run Springfield. And they run Springfield for their own benefit rather than for the benefit of you and the taxpayers and the citizens of our state. That's just a fact. They've bought most of the Democrats in Springfield, and unfortunately for us, they bought a fair number of the Republicans in Springfield too. We don't like to talk about it, but it's true. It's in the public record. Many of the legislators in the Republican Party in Springfield take major government union money. And unfortunately, one of the reasons I'm running is everybody I'm running against in this race, all 3 of my Republican opponents, take government union money in their political careers. One of them has taken more government union money than John Cohen in the last 10 years. And that's in the public record. If we need to, we'll be blasted. I'm not here this morning to blast my opponents. That's another day. But the fact is, they're engaged in a conflict of interest when they take government union money. And even honest Democrats will acknowledge that. You know, Franklin Roosevelt, the powerful Democrat president, the most pro-union president probably in American history, he was adamantly against government unions because he knew they're organized against the public good. And there's no pushback there. When they can bribe the politicians, there's no pushback representing the taxpayers or the voters anymore. It's a conflict. We've got to take on the power of the government union bosses, and I'm the one person who can do it. I've never taken a nickel from a government union boss and never will. And I'm financially independent. I'm a self-made businessman. They can't bribe me, intimidate me, influence me. Being reelected ain't on my top 10 list of worries. I want to drive a result and transform the government for the benefit of the taxpayers and the voters of our state. Pure and simple. And I want to get that done. And I will take them on. I've been studying with Mitch Daniels in Indiana. I've been in Indianapolis with him and his team. I think he was the best governor in America for 8 years when he turned Indiana around. In fact, I've got a few of his folks helping our campaign in a significant way. I've been studying with Scott Walker. He sent down one of his folks from Milwaukee to get involved with our campaign. And I've been studying with Rick Snyder over in Michigan. They are transforming their state governments. They're taking on those entrenched special interests. I'm going to do the same thing in our state that they've been doing in their states to turn it around. We're going to get that done. On education, welcome, grab a chair. Thanks for coming. On the issue of education, my wife and I firmly believe that education and training is the most important thing we do collectively as a community. Nothing more important than educating our young people. That's our future. That's our democracy. That's our competitiveness of our economy. That's our income level. Everything hinges on a great education system. And we should be world-class in education and training in Illinois as a top priority. When we spend a taxpayer dollar, the top priority for that dollar should be education and training. K-12 schools, early childhood education, community colleges, universities, vocational training, veterans retraining, job retraining for the unemployed. We should be world-class in our schools. And I'm a firm believer we've got to break up the broken monopoly of our public school system. We should encourage homeschooling for parents who want that. We should encourage charter schools and contract schools in districts that aren't performing well. We should offer voucher systems for parents in failing school districts to get out of the system and choose their school. We need competition and choice. I'm a believer that teachers should be rewarded through merit pay if they do a great job. Teachers should make more money if they do a great job. And if they're ineffective, they shouldn't be protected by a tenure system that locks them into a job for life. It's not fair, it's not right, it can damage the future of our children. There are ineffective teachers. There are many great teachers. Great ones should be rewarded, ineffective ones should be encouraged to do something else. That's what's fair and that's right. And I'll be on a mission to do that. My wife and I have been passionate education reformers for 25 years. We're among the biggest funders of charter schools in Chicago. I fund a voucher program and a scholarship program for poor kids. I helped the city of Chicago put in a merit pay system for teachers there, and I've helped raise the money for it to get it started, and now it's going to be in the budget system. We have been battling this for years, and I firmly believe we need world-class schools in every school district, not just a few, in every district. I also think it's critical in our education system. Today, our high schools are not turning out young people who are ready for a job or ready for college. And some should be going to four-year colleges and studying liberal arts. That's what I did. You know, that's great, that's fine, but not every student should do that. Not every student should go to a four-year college and study Shakespeare. You know, that's lovely, but that's not necessarily what every student should do. But what we're not doing is training them for the real workforce. I've talked to dozens of business owners around Illinois. They say, Bruce, we have a huge unemployment problem rate in Illinois, we know, but we've got 24 unfilled jobs in our company. We can't find the young people who have the basic skills to do what we need done. You need some little bit of technical, maybe even if you're on a manufacturing line, you need some technical ability to deal with a keyboard, you need to know some basic math, you need to be able to communicate and write legibly and coherently. You got to have some basic skills, and our high schools are not turning out kids who can do that. So I've been studying how to rectify the problem, because we have hundreds and thousands of unfilled jobs in Illinois because the employers are frustrated with the caliber of the workforce that's coming to them out of high school. And what some of the best school districts are doing in Palatine and Danville and many communities around the state, I've learned, is that they are forming partnerships or cooperative arrangements between the local high schools, the local community college, and the local employers. And they're getting together and talking about what skills are needed for the jobs that are available. What can the high school do in its curriculum? What can the community college do in partnership with the high schools to train our young people to fill the jobs that are available? So when they get to 18 or 20 years old, they're ready to go to work, and they've got immediately can start making a decent income. And it's working. A number of the communities it's working. And I'm going to try to push that as an important initiative around the state, so our young people can step in and lead productive lives right from the get-go and not suffer from the high unemployment that's hitting here in Illinois. And then the fourth priority after jobs, taxes, grade schools is term limits. I believe we've lost our way as a state. We have Springfield run by career politicians who are in their office for decades. Many for decades. And it's true in both parties, especially the Democrats, but both parties. And they're in office too often for the wrong reasons. They have a law firm on the side, they have a business on the side, and they make money because of their political power, their political position. It's wrong, it's corrupt, and we've got to end it. And the power of incumbency here in Illinois is too strong, and the corruption in Springfield is too strong. You know, our old Senator Everett Dirksen, I don't know if some of you may remember him, he had a famous line about Springfield. He said, "Cleanliness is next to godliness, except in the Illinois legislature, where it's next to impossible." And we have a corrupt system in Springfield where people are making money because of the political arrangements, and we've got to end that. And term limits is not the perfect solution to every problem, but it can help go a long way towards breaking up that corrupt culture in Springfield. And rather than just talk about it, I'm doing something about it. I've recruited an organization to come to Illinois. It's called U.S. Term Limits. It's a national group that's put term limits on 15 state legislatures around America already. And I've said, we need you in Illinois. So they come, they're here working. They're going to collect 300,000 signatures on a petition between now and next May. It's a lot of work. That's a lot of signatures, but that's what we need, 300,000 good signatures. Then we can get it on the ballot as a constitutional referendum in November of 2014. It'll be on the ballot November of 2014. And when it's on the ballot, it will pass because the vast majority of voters in both political parties support term limits. Term limits are supported by 2/3 of Democrats and something over 3/4 of Republicans. It's hugely popular, and we can get it done. Madigan will try to block it. He'll sue and he'll run ads and whatever. But we can get it done because it's the right thing to do, and it'll be passed because the voters want it. And at that point, then we'll have 8 years and out. And if you're in the legislature, you can't hop houses. You can't go out and come back. You're there for 8 years and you leave office. That'll be the new rule. So everybody, and the clock starts ticking in November of 2014. And if I'm fortunate enough to become your governor, I'll term limit myself at 8 years. And I'm encourage the legislature to term limit all other elected officials. I would term limit everybody in Springfield if I could by constitutional amendment. That's not allowed. The only one we can do is the legislature. But I'm going to go to Madigan. I'm sure he'll be happy to return the favor when we term limit him. I'm going to say term limit me and everybody else in Springfield. And he'll be happy to put it in the legislature and get that done. So 8 years and out. That's enough. You know, when George Washington founded our nation, he could have been president for life. In fact, many Americans wanted George Washington to be king. And he said, no, I'm a public servant. I'll work for the people of America for 8 years and then I'll leave office. Think about that philosophy. Think about that quality of government that set the standard for excellence in America for 230 years. We need that philosophy in Springfield. We can get that done. So that's the focus for the race. I've been studying with those great governors, and we're going to bring the best techniques that have worked in other states here to Illinois. When Mitch Daniels turned around Indiana, he brought 30 superstars from the business community of Indiana, brought them to Indianapolis, and he said, let's run this government like a business. Let's drive down the cost, let's drive up the productivity, let's drive results for the recipients of our government services, and let's reduce the burden on our taxpayers. And as a result, they've been sending rebates to their homeowners, they've been lowering their tax rates, they've got a booming economy, they've transformed their school system, they've done a great job. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get business leaders from all over Illinois, and I'm going to get 30 of them in a form of commission. I'm saying, you're in charge of Medicaid, let's reform it and shrink it. You're in charge of education, you're in charge of infrastructure, you're in charge of transportation, you're in charge of the Department of Motor Vehicles. Let's assess strategically, what are we doing? How can we provide that service cheaper and more effectively? Let's drive down the cost. And anything we can get out of and have the private sector do, let's get out of it and let the private sector do it rather than the government bureaucracy do it. We're going to transform the system. Now let me tell you quickly about myself, my background, and my running mate, and then let's go deep on Q&A and go into the issues that you care about. So very quickly, I was born and raised here in Illinois. Actually, I grew up here in Lake County. I grew up in Deerfield. My mom was a nurse at Northwestern University Hospital. My dad was an electrical engineer, worked his way up in Schaumburg at Motorola. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. I'm half Swedish, half German, German Catholic, Swedish Lutheran. My parents argued about it, and I was raised Episcopalian. So, you know, what are you gonna do? I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My best friend growing up was my Swedish grandfather. My mom's family were immigrants from Scandinavia, and they were dairy farmers in Wisconsin. And I grew up, my grandparents lived in a little double-wide trailer in the cornfield in Wisconsin. They had dairy cows. I built cows with my grandfather. And I'm a hunter and a fisherman. I'm a proud gun owner. I'm a bird hunter. I'm a Second Amendment supporter. I'm an avid Harley rider. I still do some ranching and farming myself, but my real business is the investment business, and I'll talk about that. I worked my way through school. Parked cars, flip burgers. I'm like your kids. You know, I had 4 paper routes and did whatever I could. I'm not happy if I'm not working, so I worked my way all through school. In college, I was the breakfast cook in the morning, making pancakes and eggs at 5 a.m. For the cafeteria. At night, I was a radio newsman. For most of college. And my friends say, Bruce, you've got a great voice for radio. Although my friends who see my political ads say, Bruce, you do have a great voice for radio, but you have a face for radio too. Stay off of television. And I say, no, we're gonna get the ads out. We're gonna run TV ads as well as radio ads. We're gonna get the message out and win this race. So when I got out of college, I met 2 executives who were at the First National Bank of Chicago, and they were leaving the bank to start a venture capital firm. I met them, they liked me, they hired me. I was employee number 5 at the startup investment company. This was in 1981 when I got out of school. And I worked my tail off, and I found some little technology companies that we invested in, and they grew big. And so they made me they were very successful. So they made me a partner of the firm in 1983, and then I became head of the firm in 1987 at the age of 31. And we grew that firm into one of the most successful investment companies in America. I was there for 32 years. And we built dozens of successful firms. And one of the things I'm proudest of is we managed state pension money. State pensions were big investors in my firm. Pensions for Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Washington. And you know, many people don't know this, and I'm going to bring it up a lot when the government union bosses are saying I'm a bad person for being a venture capitalist or private equity. The government unions and the pensions are the biggest funders of private equity and venture capital in America. Most people don't know that. That's a fact. And while we were managing pension money in Illinois, I'll get a little better. While the Illinois pensions were making 6 or 7% returns over the last 30 years, my firm generated more than 17% compound annual returns net for 30 years. 2.5 times what the pensions were making without us. We know how to run the pension system, we know how to improve it to protect honest government workers in the system, and I also have some very strong ideas on how to fix the pensions. We'll talk about that in a minute. My Lieutenant Governor running mate, her name is Evelyn Sanguinetti. I'm excited for you to meet her. She's a superstar. I love her dearly. I met her about 7 months ago when I was speaking at one of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly conferences. Evelyn is a classic American success story. Her mom was a refugee from communism in Cuba. Her dad was a legal immigrant from Ecuador, the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, basically. Her mom had Evelyn. Her mom lived in the ghetto. It was west of Miami, northwest of Miami. Her mom had Evelyn when she was 15 years old. And they lived in poverty, food stamps, you know, one step ahead of the landlord, brutal, you know, tough upbringing. But Evelyn battled through some tough schools and some tough neighborhoods. She got a scholarship to Florida International University because she, you know, eventually in high school got passionate about her education and really worked her tail off. And then she, after that, she went to the John Marshall Law School in Chicago, and then she became Assistant Illinois Attorney General under Jim Ryan. And then she got elected to the Wheaton City Council in Wheaton in DuPage County. And she's a superstar helping lead the government in Wheaton. And then she's a leader in the DuPage County GOP, and she's a leader in the Republican National Hispanic Assembly. And she's a passionate spokeswoman for conservative. She's a very passionate conservative, very articulate and charismatic leader for the conservative cause, and a great spokeswoman for Hispanic voters. And is very, very fluent and very frequent speaker. And she does a lot of the translation work for many Hispanic politicians, and she's very involved in the communication of the policies within the Hispanic community. So she'll be a great ally in terms of reaching out to Hispanic voters, which are critically important for us in the conservative element of the Republican Party. We need to reach out to Hispanic voters and bring, as Evelyn likes to say, many Hispanics in America are Republican, they just don't know it. I mean, they are about family and faith and hard work and better education and self-reliance. Many of them are, but they've been drawn over to the Democratic side, and we need to bring them to our side. And Evelyn can be, she and I are going to work hard to try to get that done. And she's going to be a wonderful ally in terms of statehood. So Evelyn and I are going to work. It's going to be a hard race, but it's a fun race. There's two big surprises on the campaign trail I've had. Two really big surprises. One really bad surprise, one really great surprise. The bad surprise is, as I've traveled the state, and Jared and I have put, I think, 39,000 miles on the Ford the last 6 months driving the state. We put 2,000 miles on the Harley. I go to when it's not raining and it's not too cold, I ride a motorcycle events. It's a lot of fun. But I can't believe how many more companies are leaving the state than I realized. You know, I've met with hundreds of companies as I've traveled, small business owners, small and mid-sized corporate company executives. So many of them said, Bruce, I love your message, you'll be a great governor, and I'll give you some money, but I don't know if I can vote for you next year or not, because we're leaving. We're moving this plant to Indiana. We're moving this operation to Nashville, Tennessee. Or we took a vote last month, and we're going to move the company to Dallas next year. I can't tell you how many companies have told me that. And they say, workers' comp here is killing us. It costs 5 times as much as it is in Indiana. Or the real estate taxes are killing the cost structure for my manufacturing plant. Or the labor regulations in Illinois are too punitive. We want to go to a state where employees aren't required to join a union in order to work. Many of them are leaving. If we don't turn that around, nothing else matters. We have got to focus on that. That's my probably biggest surprise. It's a bad one. The great surprise of the campaign is how much fun campaigning is. I had no idea. I'm twisted in ways that I didn't understand. The campaign is fun. I had people say, "Oh, but you must hate it." The people of the state are great. I love traveling. I love talking about the solutions to our problems. And I like forming teams of people. We've got hundreds of volunteers, now a couple thousand volunteers around the state working with us. It's very fun. It's very energizing. We're not past the point of no return. We've got to get to work, but we're not past the point of no return. We can turn this around. And the governorship in Illinois can lead that charge. It's a very powerful political office. You get major stuff done. If you got a steel backbone, you're not worried about re-election, you're not worried about who you're upsetting, you're just going to drive the result for the voters and the taxpayers. You've got executive order ability. You've got line item veto. You've got a mandatory veto. You control the checkbook and the spending. You can just say, no, not spending the money. And no, we're not going to do that. And when the government union contracts are up, they come up 6 months after every statewide race. You say, look, we're not going to engage in this conflict with the voters anymore, and you're going to be treated fairly, but you're going to be treated the way the voters are treated. No voter gets free health care. No voter gets free health care. What voter can retire at age 52 and get their salary for life with escalators? Voters don't get that deal. And in your job, you're making 25% more than the same worker in the private sector. That's not fair. Why should you be overpaid just because you can bribe the politician to give it to you? No, that's not a reason for that. That's not fair, and we're going to change that deal. And I'm going to stand up for the voters and the taxpayers, and we're going to stand up. And I don't need the legislature to do that. That can be done through contract negotiations led by the government. We're going to get that done. So I'm excited to go to work for you. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a tough race, but thank you for your passion and your patriotism. Look forward to going to work for you. Let's talk about questions, Q&A, issues, comments, concerns. Yes, sir.
How can someone get involved with
Oh, that's a great question. So we have our petitions here. There's a great website. You can either come to joinbruce.com and we can refer you on. That's our campaign. But they have their own separate organization. Their organization is called U.S. Term Limits. They have a website called reformandtermlimits.org. Reformandtermlimits.org. They're just upgrading the website. It's not terrific yet, but they're working on it. But we have the petitions here. And if you can take some with you, if you can sign and get some of your neighbors and friends to sign.
If you wanted to be somebody who actually wanted to get people to sign petitions.
That would be great.
Get a hold of.
Exactly. Well, we brought some, we could give you petitions. We can take them right with you and you can just start doing it. And we'll help you get registered in their system as one of our petition passers. That would be fantastic. It's, getting 300,000 signatures, that's not, that ain't just a walk in the park.
You know how it's organized? Do they do it by county?
Yeah, they're building out the network now. They've got, I don't know how many, a few dozen folks collecting them now. They've got a lot of volunteers. But we'll get you that information. We love you. Jared and Brian are here, and we'll get you signed up and get you part of it. Thank you for doing that. God bless you. To me, any of you would help get a few petitions circulating signed. That's critical.
Also could be part of the initiative here in Warren, so.
Great.
You sign up with Helen, we'll get that information to you locally.
Great.
Join us.
Great.
Bruce?
Yes.
The issue that's most front and center today is the pension problem that
Yeah.
you said you wanted to address.
Yeah.
The other night on Chicago Tonight, there were 4 legislators who've been involved in negotiating what they're talking about now. 3 out of 4 of them predicted that there'd be something happening next week or whenever it is in Springfield. If you were in office today, what solution to the pension crisis would you be advocating? And if it wasn't, exactly to your liking, what do you think you'd actually be willing to sign?
Yeah, okay, all right, good. So great question. So let's talk about the pensions for a second. This is a big, big issue. There's this pension committee meeting in Springfield all the time. I've been studying the members on that committee. We haven't studied every one, but I haven't found an exception to this yet. Everybody on that committee, Republicans and Democrats, takes significant government union contributions in their political career. Everybody in that committee is in the pension system as a legislator. And I don't feel whether you've seen what legislators get for pensions. It's ridiculous. It's wrong. It's overly, it's wrong. It's too much. And there's nobody representing the voters and the taxpayers on that committee. They're just not. Here's my frustration. There's a lot of pressure to do something about the pensions. But the reality is what's going to happen is the something they do, if they do anything at all, will make the problem maybe worse. Let me explain why. And they did the same thing when they did workers' comp reform in Illinois about 5 years ago. They did something, and it fixed nothing, and in some ways made the problem worse. Here's the issue. The unions are in charge of the process now. Every proposal on the table makes some sort of minor tweak to the pension system, but it includes language that makes the pension payments now, for the first time in Illinois history, contractually obligated, guaranteed by the government and the taxpayers, senior to public safety, education, healthcare, and required contractually to be funded at the actual table calculation. That's never been true in Illinois. So it takes away all the flexibility and the negotiating leverage, and it makes it senior. It puts it contractual obligation at the top of the priority list for all the liabilities and obligations of the state government. That should not happen. That just gives the government union bosses more power and more muscle to keep their pensions protected and to leave them in place. That's wrong, and I'm fighting against that outcome. I'm okay with nibbling around the edges for now, if they want, but they should never put that language in there with the contractual obligation and the seniority. That's in every proposal so far, and so I'm fighting. Here's what we have to do, in my opinion. We have to end the current pension system. Freeze it, stop it, don't continue from going forward. And we should move everybody in the government from this day forward into a 401k defined contribution style plan. That's what voters have. That's what government workers have. There's nothing unfair about that, and there's nothing unconstitutional about that. That's the #1 priority. We have to do that. And nobody's really talking about that right now in Springfield, but that's what we have.
Isn't that what the Illinois Policy Institute is
That's
basically advocating?
That's a key part of their proposal, and I work very closely with them. I'm a member and a big supporter of theirs, and that's something they're advocating. But nobody on the pension committee is talking about it for the reasons I just mentioned. And then from there, we have to look what's constitutional and what's fair and appropriate. I know another thing we need to do is have our government workers paid fairly, but not paid with a base salary way beyond what the same job gets in the private sector. That's another adjustment that we need to make, and that's what's fair. It's not fair to have them way overpaid relative to the private sector. And just because they can work with the politicians, you know, to bribe them to get that deal, we've got to change that, and I will. Those two changes alone bring down the unfunded liability in a very dramatic way, and we're doing the calculations now to get a precise number. Today, the unfunded liability is $100 billion. When you hear the politicians talking about the pension changes, they always talk about the savings over 30 years, so they can talk about some big number. No, that's baloney. That's a spin to kind of avoid responsibility. What they should be telling you is the liability is $100 billion today. What does this change take off of that $100 billion? That's the number they should be telling you. You won't hear them talking about it because the number's small, relatively small. That's what they don't want you to know. I haven't seen, you know, the calculations on these latest proposals. None of the proposals is particularly good. I think Madigan's did the most. Madigan's proposal did the most to reduce the liability, but it didn't go far enough. And it also left in this language about the contractual obligation. So I'm very worried that they'll do something, and it won't be enough, but it'll make the problem worse. So we've got to end it, define contribution plan, and then we've got to look at what's constitutional in terms of changing history. You know, I think we have an obligation to protect honest government workers who paid into the system and aren't retired or making that much money. You know, we've got teachers trying to make $30,000 or $40,000 a year in retirement. We should, you know, that's not wrong. I don't have trouble with that. What I have trouble with is all the corruption in the system. Our pension systems in Illinois are corrupt and abusive. You know, we had our former mayor of Chicago put himself into a job for 2 days, pop himself back out, and he's getting $150 grand for the rest of his life with escalators for putting himself into a job for 2 days. And that's not uncommon. And we have Dennis Gannon, the former head of Chicago Federation of Labor. When he was working, he was making, we're getting the data, it's something like $190,000 a year. In retirement, he's making over $600,000 a year because he's getting 3 pensions. And we've got double dipping, we have triple dipping, we have guys. Here's what's going on. I'll tell you, when I've got to go prosecute this. You're an assistant school superintendent in Northbrook. I'm an assistant school superintendent in Glenview. We hit 52. I've passed that, but you know, we hit 52. And then my buddies in my district spike my salary. So if I was making 200 grand, I'll get 230. They'll do it right at the end, right before I retire. Your buddies do that for you too. And then you take my job, I'll take your job. We get our old pension, our old deal with escalators for life, and above what we were working, what we got when we were working. And then I get your salary, and then I can accrue a second pension. And then sometimes you get to do that for the 3rd time. That's going on all over the state. That is going on all over the state. And I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to name names and I'm going to name numbers. I'm going to have some people cranky at me, but that's okay. We have to prosecute. Some of that's, you know, I don't know what I can prosecute because some of that was, quote, legal. It was unethical. It was legal. And I've got to go see what I can prosecute. What I can't prosecute, I'm going to push for a constitutional referendum to reverse all those deals. If you were spiked in, you go back to your old salary. And if you're getting 3 pensions, you can pick 1. That's it. It's, you know, and that constitutional amendment could pass because your average voter and your average honest worker, your average teacher is being ripped off. You know, the teachers aren't really the problem in the system. It's the administration and the corruption of the spiking. And we've got to go after that and expose it. I'm going to do that in a pretty major way. Yes.
You talked about term limits. Let's say that you were someone who is a good state legislator, and they get their 8 years. Can they run for governor?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's no, and then is the governor an 8-year term limit then?
Well, I want it to be, and I'll term limit myself. I can't do that by this referendum. Under state law, the only thing we can do by this referendum is the legislature. So I'm doing what we can do. But I'm pretty sure Madigan will help return the favor and term limit everybody else in the government once this happens. And I will be encouraging that to happen. But here's you know, there's a lot of arguments against term limits, and I understand them. And they're not the perfect solution. And you know, there are many honest politicians, you know, not enough, but there's many honest ones, and we're doing it for the right reason. And many people say to me, Bruce, but I don't want to lose my state rep because he's good, or she's great. And my answer is, you know what, George Washington was awesome too, and Abraham Lincoln was awesome too, and you know, they were on the 8-year program. Lincoln was, unfortunately, shorter than that. But you know, they can go do something else. If they want to be a public servant, they can run for the school board, or run for governor, or run for treasurer, or go back in the private sector. You know what? There are a lot of leaders in America, and we should have a lot of different voices and different opportunity for folks. And nobody should be locked in and entrenched forever, in my view. And the power of incumbency is too strong. And in a corrupt state like Illinois, when that incumbency is so powerful, the corruption gets worse. So I think it's critical.
How will it affect pension?
Pensions, well, a state legislator, one of the first pieces of legislation I'm going to propose in Springfield is that every legislator end their current pension system and move into a 401k. So then there's no impact on pensions. Let's start the legislature doing the right thing for the voters and taxpayers, and then we can go from there. And I'd like to see them squawk and say, oh, no, we don't, should. Yes, you should. If you're an elected official, you should be in a 401k.
They're only 18% funded as it is.
Well, I've been here, what somebody just told me, and I'm gonna talk about it. Apparently the legislators just decided they didn't want to fund into their pension. They just wanted to, they wanted to get the pension, but they didn't want to pay anything into it. That's what somebody told me. I'm gonna go get the data on that. I don't know. Yes.
Bruce, you won't say, but I will. Kurt Dillard has probably collected hundreds of thousands of union money, and talked about Dan Rutherford last week. He said his pension program, or his investments have made tons of money for the state, which I got one bit. But my real concern, Bruce, is that can you win 20% of the Chicago vote? Are you going to campaign hard in those areas?
Yeah, you know what? It's a great question. My emphatic answer is yes. I'm going to probably get 25% of the Chicago vote. We can't win statewide as conservative Republicans if we don't do decently in Chicago. The math just doesn't work. We have to do decent. Now, we can win statewide. I've seen the data. You got to win at least 22, 23% in Chicago as a Republican to win statewide. That's just how the math is. And I'm in a unique position as a conservative Republican. I've done a lot of work. We have a condominium in Chicago. I've done a lot of work in Chicago, built businesses. And I've got relationships there that are very powerful, and I'll talk about that. But I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I've got a lot of relationships in the suburbs of Chicago, but I come from a small town farming family, and when I travel south of Peoria, south of Springfield, I've got some of my strongest support down there, because I can talk to people straight up about ranching and farming and hunting and, the life of a small town. I feel like I'm going to a family reunion when I go to Lincoln Day dinners and everything. I mean, I feel like I'm with my aunts and uncles and my cousins. It's really fun, and I can connect on a very personal basis. But we've got to unify the Republican Party from the small communities, with the suburbs of Chicago, with the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago actually has a fair number of Republicans in it, and a lot of independent voters. They're outnumbered, but there are a fair number of them. And I'm going to get a lot in Chicago. Here's why. I'm going to work my fanny off to get votes in Chicago. Reverend Meeks on the south side is a very influential minister. He's helping our campaign very actively. He and I are friends. He's a pro-school choice, pro-voucher, pro-charter school, pro-right to work. He's in a lot of ways he's a Republican, although he doesn't call himself that. And he and I are good friends, and he's helping our campaign. And his church has more than 20,000 members. Reverend Hatch on the west side, one of my best friends, very much like Reverend Meeks, he's helping our campaign. And they each lead a group of about 6 ministers, each of whom has a church of more than 10,000 members. And they want they want more jobs and they want better schools. And the Democrats aren't delivering. They want safer streets. Democrats aren't delivering. We can do things to help. They know, and they know me because they know I deliver results. And I've already been walking the neighborhoods in the South Side. On Saturday mornings in the South, in the African American neighborhoods, barbershops is where politics are discussed. And I've been going to the barbershops on Saturday morning and shaking hands and giving my speech and getting a lot of people and talking. And we have some of the best conversations about pensions and crime and school choice and unemployment. We have great discussion, and we can get a lot of votes. Now, am I going to win the majority of African American voters? No. But you know what? There are many we can win, and I'm going to ask for every vote. I was up another example. I'm going to work my tail off in Chicago. It's critical. A couple Sundays ago, I gave a speech to a group of 600 Romanian Americans at their church on the north side of Chicago in the Bungalow Belt, where Republicans never go, never. And I went there, and they had me speak to them in their basement of the church after services on Sunday afternoon at 12:30. And what was great, they were like, Republican politicians never come here. It's great to have you. We love your message. And we came to America to get away from government and people like Democrats. We don't like them, and we want to vote for somebody like you. Thank you for your message. Thank you for coming here. We'll put out yard signs for you. We'll work with you. But if they didn't go and ask for the vote and get the message out, who knows what maybe they would have, I don't know. And frankly, some of them got to be proactive. There are a lot of precincts in Chicago. I'm not even sure they have Republican ballots at the precinct office. I mean, you know, you know what? I'm not. I mean, it's funny. It's the law. They should, but I think a lot of those precincts they don't even have them. I know. Some of my friends have gone in to vote Republican in the South Side, and they go in and say, "I'd like to pull a Republican ballot." And they look at them like they got 3 heads. They say, "Johnny, we got Republican ballots here." You know, and nobody vote. You know, and we've got to get proactive, folks, and we got to monitor the voter fraud. We've got to help precinct. You know, we got to help poll watchers, and we'll never stop all the corruption, but we've got to be more proactive at watching and monitoring and prosecuting the corruption because there's still massive voter fraud. Chicago, Waukegan, North Chicago, Rockford, East St. Louis is out of control. I mean, we have Elgin, yeah. I mean, we need poll watchers, and I'm going to have a program. We're going to work that hard to try to bring a little more integrity. My friends in Chicago tell me, Bruce, there's still about 1/3 of the precincts in Chicago where the bosses just talk over what they want the turnout to be and what they want the margin to be, and then they just do that. You know, I don't know, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. Yes.
This doesn't involve the big 4 that you're going to work on, but because I've been going now on a regular basis, I've been asked several times on your stand on social issues, and particularly pro-choice, pro-life, and all I say is that it always makes me very uncomfortable. All I say is that you have conservative values and you can go to the website.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't be uncomfortable at all. I'm very direct about my views. My issue is we need to be respectful. As Republicans, we need to be respectful of each other's views. That's it. And I have some of the most socially conservative leaders in our state helping our campaign. Jack Roser, Jim Schultz. Jim and his brother built a 75-foot cross, a beautiful cross outside of Effingham. He's one of the most socially conservative. He's a leader in the state. He's co-chair of my campaign. And Jack Roser, leader of the social conservative cause. He's one of the main leaders of our campaign. Matt Kibbe, the leader of Freedom Works, the National Tea Party resident. He's on our campaign committee. I have some of the most conservative folks in the state helping our campaign. I have some of the most socially moderate and most socially liberal Republicans in the state helping our campaign. I respect everyone's views, and my point is we have to unite to win. I'm not going to change your view. You're not going to change my view. And the reality is, the right for a woman to choose is the national law, and we're not going to. That ain't going to change in Illinois. I think we can agree on some common sense ways where abortion can be more rare and safe. I support parental notification. I support late-term restrictions. I strongly encourage adoption as a far better alternative to abortion. You know, there are things we can agree on to try to work and get done realistically. But I'm one who believes, you know, I just think it's better that a woman and her physician and her family and her minister or priest make the choice make the decision than the government. That's my view. People can disagree with me. I respect that, but that's my view. It ain't going to change.
Let me piggyback on that. Right now, the gay marriage issue is a real hot spot.
Yep.
Joanne Osmond has been getting proposed and going off the hook. And you know, this thing's coming up soon.
Yep.
What's your statement?
Yeah, so here's my view. I have never supported it. I will never advocate for it. My view is it should be decided by the voters in a referendum. And if it's a non-binding referendum, the politicians should agree to bind themselves to it, you know, one way or the other. I think it's you know, we can all debate this issue. I'm just going to explain my view. I don't think it's an issue. It's a society's acceptance of a new contractual relationship between two adults. Does society accept it or not? We all have our views. I'm entitled to mine. You're entitled to yours. I think the right thing is for the voters to decide it themselves. I don't think politicians should force it on voters if they don't want it, and I don't think politicians should block it from voters if they do want to accept it. That's my view.
If the bill came up, would you sign the bill?
Here's my answer. If Madigan sends a bill to my desk, My answer is, Mike, did this get decided, did the voters opine on this in a referendum or not? If they didn't, I have to veto the bill, because I don't know what the voters want in our society. If they did opine on it, if the voters approved it in a referendum, whether it was a binding referendum or not, if the voters said they want to accept it, I would sign it. If they haven't voted, if they haven't had a voter referendum, or they voted no on it, then I would veto it.
But that's not what's happening.
I'm sorry.
That's not what's happening right now. The legislators are deciding.
I know, that's my point. So if I was governor, if they sent me that bill today, I would veto it. Because it hasn't been, the voters haven't been in the opportunity to say what they think.
I don't think that Illinois voters are speaking out.
I don't know, I haven't seen any ability for them to opine. I haven't seen it. I mean, maybe if it's happened, I'd love to know.
I was in Springfield looking at thousands of
It's fair. I mean, I know there are thousands of voters who want traditional marriage, and there's a lot of voters who want to accept this new structure. So, anyway, that's I've been clear from day one on my views. People can either agree or disagree, it's okay. I respect your view. If you're a passionate believer in traditional marriage and not allowing gay marriage, I respect your view. And that's, every American should express their view.
This goes to the law and what we were just talking about. In California, the voters said, we want a certain thing. And a law was passed that says, that's it. That's the law of this state. But the federal judges turn it over. How can we stop something like that? The voters spoke and said, this is what we want in our state. And federal judges say, your ideas have no meaning.
Yeah, I agree. I'm troubled by what I'm seeing going on. This is our society wrestling with a complex set of dynamics. And it's a pretty ugly kind of sausage-making process that we're seeing play out in different states and with the federal judges. And I don't know how this plays out, where it goes. I'm troubled in general by activist judges who kind of decide they'll make up the laws, rather than letting the legislature and the voters decide the laws. That troubles me. I can't comment on what the federal rulings. I'm not a lawyer. I just believe that the people should decide important things. That's just my general view. As an overall philosophy. And the less government we have telling people what they have to do in their lives, the better. I mean, I'm just a limited government.
Do they decide on taxes and pension too? As individual voters? We don't get those choices.
Well,
the legislator does that.
Yeah, you see, I could argue maybe when the income tax was first instituted as a new idea back in, when did we first have an income tax?
69.
Well, the state level, but the federal level, we had it back at so early 1900s. My view is the first time a brand new concept comes into place, I think the voters should decide it. That's my bias. Once we've got it, it's been around and it's in our system, then when we're arguing about it at the margin, does it go up or down, I think the politicians should decide it. Because you can't have every decision every day decided in a referendum, nothing we wouldn't get in. Do you have? Yes, sir.
You talked about education. What I've noticed, you hear it over the airwaves all the time, like you mentioned, these companies leave, there's a lot of jobs that go unfulfilled because they don't have the proper skill sets. Well, I think it was in the 80s they removed all the industrial arts programs from most of our high schools.
Which was ridiculous.
I was a struggling student in high school, but I got A's in auto shop, and I was in band, I got A's in band, everything else. I was a C student or worse at, but I learned basic English and arithmetic and things like that, and I think they push college way too much into schools, and everybody doesn't have the ability to do that. And then now we have government getting involved in job training programs. What does government know about training people for jobs? People used to go to Abbott's right out of high school in North Chicago, and they train you to do the job there. I'd rather give a corporation a tax break to take high school kids and train them to move them into their workforce rather than opening up a government building, staffing it, giving people jobs who don't know how to train for something.
I emphatically agree with you. in fact, I've talked to many business owners around the state who said, Bruce, we're happy to do some training here at the company, but the young people that we can find who are interested in our jobs, they're not even ready for the basic training that we want to give them. The schools are not turning out kids who can do the basic things that sound like you learned. And I emphatically agree with you that we've moved away from multiple options for our young people in high school. We've done away from shop and vocational schools and vocational training to save money, or I don't know what we're thinking, but our school system is just broken. It's just not run for the benefit of our school children and our taxpayers and our parents. And we've got to have a school system that trains people to think and work, but not everybody should be on a track to go to a 4-year college and study Shakespeare. That's not what everybody should be doing. There's a lot of jobs out there in our economy, but our young people have to be ready to fill them. And our schools are not creating the kids ready to.
I was perpetually in trouble at home with my parents because the counselors kept saying, well, he's bright, but he doesn't apply himself. And they kept putting me in accelerated classes, and I don't need to tell you, if you missed that first lesson in math, you're lost the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You can't get caught up, and that's what happened to me, and I wish we could go back to a simpler time when probably served the public a lot better.
Obviously, Madigan, Cullerton, Rahm Emanuel, they're not going to make it easy.
Right.
Assuming that you win the governorship. What's your strategy to overcome that? What plan is there?
Great question. This is the big challenge of the governorship when you're up against a recalcitrant bureaucracy and recalcitrant legislature. And let's be clear, it's worse than a supermajority against us. Today it's a supermajority, and I'm going to work hard with you to rebuild the Republican Party so we can bring it down below a supermajority. I think we got a shot to do that next year. But it's worse than a supermajority because a lot of the Republicans down there are on the wrong side. They've sold out to the wrong side. So it's worse problem than we like to say. So here's what we do. I'm moving to Springfield. I convinced my wife, she didn't love the idea, but we're moving to Springfield. We're going to live in the governor's mansion. Every day those rascals are in the legislature in session, I'm going to be with them. I'm going to be arm twisting and cajoling and working and selling and, pushing. And I'm going to know every one of them personally, and I've been working hard. I can't be a good governor if I don't know the legislators, and I've been working hard to get to know them. I know many of them. I certainly know the leaders well. I'm not pleased by what I've learned as I've gotten to know them, but we got to deal with the cards we're dealt. I'm a realist, at least I try to be. I'm going to know them, and you know what, in business, you don't get complex deals done. You don't drive a result by winging in a phone call and making a threat every 2 weeks. You're in there in person, you're working, you're figuring out what matters, and you're solving problems. You hit a snag on one issue, you figure a way around it or figure a way to solve the problem to get a result. We've got to drive some legislative changes. I'm going to have a list of things that I can do by executive order. I'm going to have a list of things I can just do by managing the government differently and appointing different people in the government. I'm going to have a list of things I have to have as a legislative priority. And I'm going to rank them, and I'm going to go after my legislative agenda in a very aggressive fashion, and I'm going to listen to the legislature. What's their legislative agenda? What do they want? And it's a management process and it's a leadership process. I've had many Democrats as well as Republicans in Springfield in the legislature come to me and say, Bruce, love your message. I will never publicly endorse you. That said, we need a leader in Springfield who take the arrows. We need somebody who's going to step out in front and get the knife in the back and get the arrow in the face. We need somebody. We'll be back there going, okay, Bruce, good, and we'll do our little votes and whatever. We'll dodge around, but we need somebody out there leading the charge and taking the arrows and actually being very aggressive. And I won't say extreme. That's not the right word, but being very aggressive because in the end, there's trade-offs in politics. I mean, they're just on. I'm on an agenda to reduce the spending, reduce the tax burden, improve the school quality, and become free market capitalist state. I'm on an agenda to do that, and I will be passionate in that, and I'm going to fight hard on that legislative agenda. I'll be there working with them. And I can leverage things that the average politician can't because I don't need a job. See, Madigan's never dealt with somebody like me. That's right. I don't need money. They can't do, what are they going to do to me? They can't hurt me. I mean, my special constituents, my special group is you guys and the voters of the state. You guys are being abused. They can't do any work. I mean, it's hard for them to do too much worse than the citizens of the taxpayers than they are. And I know where they make their money. I know where that crowd in Springfield, I know their special interest groups. I can go after them. I've got the leverage in this relationship. We'll have the leverage in the relationship. And I'm mad at, you know, they've never dealt with somebody like me. I'm not a politician worried about re-election. That ain't on my worry list. So I can get a lot done, I think. Yes, sir.
I'm Keith Turner, Bruce, and I'm a candidate for state representative in the 60th district. This district just to the east of us. First of all, I feel like I ought to call you Uncle Bruce because, man, you're telling it just like it is. Two things I want to ask about. First, the easy one first. The concealed carry law that was passed is very restrictive, and you know my position is we shouldn't even permit to own or carry a gun anyway. It's a right, not a privilege. But regardless, it is the law, yet it's very restrictive in where you can carry. You can carry in public, but not in public places, basically.
Right, right.
I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on revising that legislation to make it less restrictive, and also with an eye towards the effect of the costs associated with obtaining a concealed carry license, right? So from beginning to end, for a novice shooter, it's going to cost you anywhere between $1,200 and maybe $1,800 from the time you apply for a FOID card till you strap on a pistol and you can go out the door and defend yourself. I'm interested in knowing your thoughts on revisions to the law.
Okay, great question. Let me say a couple of philosophical points and then I'll talk specific. I'm a gun owner, I'm a hunter, I'm a believer in the Second Amendment. Gun ownership is part of the American tradition. It's protected in our government for all kinds of reasons. And I'm a believer in the Second Amendment. We've been long overdue to have a concealed carry law in this state. It was ridiculous that it took as long as it did. I have not read the law myself. I've got advisors telling me about it. From what I understand, it's got many restrictions, many limitations that are probably not reasonable. I have not spent my time to study it. I will, and I'll come up with some points of view on it. My big issue is gun ownership is being attacked because of our crime problems in our community, and it's wrong. We are barking up the wrong tree. We're letting the politicians make excuses and attack honest gun owners because of our crime problem. That's wrong, and I will fight that tooth and nail. We have crime problems because we have these horrific, horrible situations where people are shooting multiple people in a location. It's horrific, but it's not gun ownership, it's mental illness or it's other issues, and we've got to stop, you know, attacking gun owners over that issue. And then we have massive drug gang crime problems. That is not about gun ownership. The politicians immediately, when you've got these shootings on the south side or in Rockford, let's be clear, it's not just Chicago. Rockford, East St. Louis, Peoria, I mean, there's a lot of drug gang crime in our state. It's not gun ownership, is not the problem. To me, there's 4 problems, or contributing to it, 3 of which I can help fix. 1 I can't help fix. Maybe the biggest problem is the tragic loss of traditional 2-parent families in our society. It's horrible. I don't have if anybody here's got an answer for me on how I can help it, I don't, you know, I love it, I don't know, but that's a problem. Huge part of the problem. Other 3 parts I can do a lot about. That's getting a booming economy so there are jobs available for young people who actually don't want to choose a career of making money by crime, but they actually want to get an honest job. We got to do a better job there. We got to have great schools in many of these poor areas so the kids actually get trained so they can have decent jobs and they don't lose confidence and lose any view of the future, and then they leave to go into a crime life. And then third, and this is a critical issue, I'm going to work closely with the mayors and the chairman of the counties around the state. We've got to take on the budget problems, the union problems, the pension problems in the governments so we can afford to properly hire and pay police officers and public safety officials. One of the reasons crime's gone out of control, many municipalities around the state are cutting back on their support of police officers and the staffing of public safety officials because they can't afford it. Chicago used to have much more undercover work, much more prevention work, much more sophisticated monitoring than they're doing today because you know, the city of Chicago is financially teetering and they've cut back. And I want to help fix that so we can afford proper public safety funding in our communities. You know, I've been studying the data. The average homicide victim in Chicago has 6 felony arrests. They know who's, you know, there's 400,000 kids in the school system, there's 2,000 kids that are very high risk, and there's about 400, you know who they are. And you know, and it's, if I'm one of the 400, you're one of the 400, I shoot your friend or your brother or whatever. They know within about 6 weeks, there'll be about 6 more shootings that come off of that. They know how it plays. They used to be able to go right to me and you, because we had the thing, and then go and prevent it, cut it off and take some proactive things to pull us out of the system. They're not doing that much anymore. I mean, they've started to go back to it, and the crime is starting to fall back down. But we've got to have proper funding of police work to get after these crime problems, or we're never, our citizens are not going to be safe.
Yeah, if I may, that's a good segue to my other point. So, you know, the big elephant in the room is, you know, what you know and I know and everybody knows is that illegal aliens compete for and absorb resources that we, the taxpayers, pay for, and those resources should be going to us and our families and our children and our community. And I'm not suggesting anything about immigration. I'm strictly speaking tax policy and economics. And it would seem to me that there ought to be some way to lessen the amount of taxpayer dollars that are being funneled to programs or services that illegal aliens are taking advantage of, and reprioritize those monies so that our neighbors and our children and grandchildren can benefit from them. The schools are being overwhelmed by the children of illegal aliens. In Waukegan, we had a hospital that was shut down as a direct and only as a result of illegal aliens using it as a clinic. So, and I know it's a touchy subject. You know, you got a Hispanic running mate, and you're going to seek the Hispanic vote and all that. But I just want to throw that out there. It's an obvious issue that we all know exists, but nobody ever wants to speak to it. And that's, you know.
You're raising a very, very important issue. We've got to get our hands on it. I'll make a couple general comments about it, but I'm not going to go deep today.
Yeah.
We in America have made a fundamental error in our immigration policy. We leave illegal immigration easy to do,
Yes.
and we make legal immigration almost impossible.
Right. That's right.
And we've got to completely flip that around. We should make legal immigration for honest, hardworking people. We should make it easy to come here, encourage people, especially people who got an education and who have technical skills. We should be like having signs, come to America.
We used to.
Come on in. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're hostile to people with degrees. We put them on restrictions, and we won't give them visas, and we're hostile to honest, hardworking, and educated people, and we make it a piece of cake to come here illegally. It's just wrong. It's a nightmare. And the one thing, let's be clear, the only other comment I'll say, we can't be a nation, and we can't control our challenges if we don't control our borders. Just period, end of story. You know, Ronald Reagan led comprehensive immigration reform in 1986. It didn't change a whole lot because we didn't control our borders after that. We should, you know, and I'm a supporter of comprehensive immigration reform, but to talk about it when we're not controlling our borders, we're just whistling in the grave. I don't know what we're wasting our time.
Thank you, Bruce.
Let's take one more, maybe.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I got a call last night from someone telling me that they'll put me in touch with Roscoe, my congressperson, to vote on this amnesty. They're trying to push that through. You know, that, and I said, well, this is so that the illegals can get a driver's license, all that business. And I said, well, what about the legal people who've been trying to get in here the legal way? I said, will these people go in front of them? And he wasn't sure.
You're talking about the federal law that's being pushed right now?
Yeah, I'm not explaining it quite right, but some others might get calls like that too.
Yeah, well, the federal government's obviously embroiled in a big debate about the immigration reform bill.
They're pushing on that now.
Right. I'm not surprised you're getting calls. I have not focused really on the federal level. I mean, what I push with our Congress men and women who I talk with, and I say, look, we've got to control our national borders before you start talking about this stuff. And we're not doing it. We're not doing it. And we're capable of doing it. We just don't make it a priority to do. And it's hard to be a nation if we don't control the borders. You know, and we're a generous people. We believe in freedom, and we're generous and open. So we don't want to, if somebody's here and they have a medical need, we don't want to turn them away. We don't want to, you know, especially for young people or a parent of, you know, we're generous people. But we do get taken advantage of, but we don't control our borders. This is true, and that's wrong. It's not fair to anybody, especially not fair to the American people. So, anyway, thank you. God bless you all. It's great to be with you this morning. Thank you for your patience.